Welcome to Michael's Record Collection. I'm very happy to have with me for this episode Chuck Wright, bass player and former member of Quiet Riot. Thanks for your time today.
I'm glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chuck. I am pretty excited about this new project you've got called Chuck Wright's Sheltering Sky. Now, this seems to be to me from what the press release said, this seems to be more of a project than a band, right?
It's not a band. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
basically I had because of the pandemic, I had the time to get back into composing, and I recorded a bunch of songs. And I contact friends of mine and go, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And they immediately go, "Let me play on it." So it ended up being I have like over 30 guest musicians on it, and guys from Skid Row and Asia and Dream Theater and just Mr. Big,
Hmm.
bunch of different guys basically from that era, and some newer like jazz fusion players, and because it's a really diverse record musically. I mean, it covers a lot of territory. So
Yeah, the
um,
first single is Out Army of Me, and that is a cover of a Bjork song, which was very surprising. How did
I
you
know it
arrive at
really
that?
surprised. Well, you know what happened was I was going through some files and I came across the song that I'd recorded the basic track for with the late Pat Torpey from Mr. Big and my longtime friend Lanny Cordola, who's in House of Lords with me. And when I found the track, I go, it just was drums and the guitar and bass. I go, this song needs to be finished. So I found the right singer for it, Whitney Ty, who's featured on it. Actually, she's on a couple other songs on the album, and enlisted a few other people that joined in and played on it. And then I got together. There's a friend of mine that's a 3D animator, and I saw one of his things with these dancing Egyptian figures to a Michael Jackson thing. And right at the time, I go, you know what? That because it was like an army of things, and at the time I go, oh, yeah, I'd like to do a video of this song. And I contacted him, and uh, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was um, during the period of time when she was just passing away. And I go, what a better person to represent an army of people left behind after she passed. So that's how that whole initiated. Then the video reflects 2020 and the chaos of the world, and basically that's it. And Bjork wrote the lyric about her brother telling him to get his act together. She didn't say act; she used the word s.
Hmm.
For me, it's like, hey, wake up, world, get your act together. This is, there's a lot of people that believe in what's right is right, and let's deal with it.
Yeah.
So that's where it came from.
You talked about this being a diverse album. It's going to come out in 2022. Do you have a sort of a target date?
Well, I'm hoping to finish up the last. I've got 5 more songs to finish up that are very close, and I'm hoping to finish before Christmas. And then at that point, I'd like to do one more video. I have to decide what song is the best one to do it with, and then I'm hoping to have the album out by March
Cool.
of next year.
Now, do you have a label for this, or are you putting it out
Yeah,
yourself?
I signed with Cleopatra.
Okay.
Um, I ran into my friend Brian Pereira, who's the CEO and president of the label, and told him what I was up to and that I was in negotiation with another label, and blah blah. We talked and sent him the stuff, and I know him. I worked a lot with him in the '90s, doing a lot of different projects, and we're already friends. So I said, "Here's listen to the music," and he really liked what I was doing, and so yeah, it's out. It's going to be out on Cleopatra. It is signed, and it's a real thing.
Great.
Yeah.
Is this going to be vinyl or just CD, or do
You
you
know
know?
what? We'll see what happens. I would love to. You know what? Being a graphic designer, when you had 10-inch by 10-inch to work with, and now it's down to a postage stamp because you have to get people's attention with a postage stamp size piece of art.
Hmm.
My For Army of Me, it basically is the title really big with images from the video within the lettering, which grabs your attention pretty good for such a small thing. On Spotify and all those platforms, it's just tiny.
Yeah.
Back in the 80s, or even back a while ago, you could go full scale, and people would look. I remember being a kid looking forward to the artwork, and
Sure.
it's a totally different experience now
Yeah.
nowadays. So
So you talked about Pat Torpey, Lanny Cordola. Sven Martin from the Jonathan Davis Band is on keyboards on that song, and Whitney
Yeah.
Ty is the vocalist. You talked about some of the other musicians on the upcoming album. You mentioned Dream Theater, which is a favorite of mine. Who did you work with Dream
Well, there actually, I did this instrumental piece at the very beginning of the pandemic called "The Weight of Silence," and I heard Derek really liked that original thing I put out. It was just me, you know. I just was playing everything, and I taught myself how to edit. And I edited together a nice video with a lot of drone footage of empty streets, empty cities, reflecting the kind of sci-fi-ish world we were living in right when the pandemic hit. You know, it was post-apocalyptic kind of vibe.
Yeah.
So we remember it well. So, the video really captured, I mean, a couple of people said that it made him cry, you know. So, anyway, I heard Derek liked the tune, and at that point, Troy Laketta from Tesla reached out to me, said, "Man, I love your song. I'd love to play drums on it." And I never really considered it as a full band kind of sounding song, but I said, "Sure, man." And he sent me something that was phenomenal. And then another person I know who's a well-known jazz fusion guitarist named Alan Hines, same thing. He heard it and asked if he'd play on it. So I have a new version of that song with a full band. And Derek Sherinian came on board from Dream Theater, formerly with Dream Theater, and did some strings and moog and some other instrumentation backing on it.
Yeah, Derek always does good work.
He's phenomenal. Yeah, yeah.
It sounds like there's a lot of different styles on this album. How would you categorize it if you're gonna put it out in the record store? What section would you put it in?
I guess the overreaching thing is rock, but I definitely cover everything. There's prog, there's jazz fusion. Like I said, I'm just now working on a Celtic piece that's actually there's a song I loved when I was younger called "Darkness, Darkness" by the Youngbloods. It came out in 1969, and I'm doing a full Celtic kind of treatment to that. I have a couple killer heavy funk tunes that feature Jeff Scott Soto singing on one, and
Nice.
and Joe Retta singing on the other one, who's another phenomenal. Both those guys sing R&B stuff amazingly, but it has a rock edge, like a Living Color kind of, and Chili Peppers maybe meets something. I don't know how else to describe it, but the record's definitely eclectic, diverse, and cinematic. I try to like tell a story with the whole album from the way it starts, and it takes you through these different worlds and feelings, and it has a darker vibe, maybe lyrically, with so much loss going on. So there's songs like "Giving Up the Ghost," and when I wrote a song right when Frankie Benelli passed away, I sat down that day when I heard, and it came out just beautiful. It's called "See You on the Other Side."
Yeah, I had Alex Grossi on the show, and we talked a lot about Frankie and how great it is that Frankie laid down so many drum tracks before he passed that could show up on later Quiet Riot albums. So that's something that fans can look forward to.
Well, it's an interesting concept, let's put it that way, to try to take and write a song around an existing drum arrangement part.
Yeah.
With technology now, it's way easier than it used to be when you had tape to like edit and cut up an arrangement. Like, okay, here's a drum fill. Okay, we can use that to set up this part. So yeah, I can see that happening. Yeah. I mean, there were discussions with that right before I departed the band. In fact, there was one track being passed around that we were messing with.
You brought up the word cinematic, which brings me to an interesting point in your career. You did soundtrack work for the film called The Conqueror.
Well, yeah, that was basically different. I was involved in 7 film scores back in the 90s. That I was hired with Matt Sorum, who you might know from Guns N' Roses and The Cult, and I think he's currently playing with Billy Gibbons. Anyway, we were hired to go in and play with the London Philharmonic to do the Call of the Conqueror. They wanted to do, I guess Metallica had an album out that was orchestra and metal, and they decided that they wanted to do that kind of approach for the soundtrack, something more hip and rock. And basically we did our tracks, and then London Philharmonic played to what we did. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like we were in the same room with them.
Right.
But I also, during that period of time, I was doing a lot of independent film work, scoring movies with Matt and Lanny, recording, which was really a really fun time, very creative time.
Hmm. And what
But we,
happens when you do something like that? Do you go to the premiere and all that stuff?
I did go to the premiere of Call,
Hmm.
definitely. And we actually, this is an interesting side story. One of the movies we did called Sound Man, Slash played on it, and Teddy Zigzag from Guns N' Roses, and we ended up going up to the Sundance Film Festival and performing live, playing the songs off from the movie, and the place was packed. I guess I heard that they were like, people were selling tickets for ridiculous amounts of money up there because Slash was playing, and Duff was there as well, and Matt Sorum was there. So it was like a Guns N' Roses thing. And the funniest thing was it's packed. Slash goes up and he goes, and everybody thinks they're going to hear Welcome to the Jungle, right? And they
Hmm.
this goes crazy. He goes up to the mic and goes, "Not gonna happen, man. Not gonna happen." It was pretty funny. I couldn't believe he did that. But yeah, that was a fun time, definitely.
Awesome. So you joined Quiet Riot back in '82, and a lot of people don't know this, I guess, because of when Quiet Riot became popular. But you played bass on the tracks Metal Health, Bang Your Head, and Don't Want to Let You Go. And you sang background vocals on all the tracks in 1983 on Metal Health. What was that time like for you?
Well, back in those days, I was playing with Kevin's band, which was called Dubrow.
Hmm.
Um, and the guitar player from my band at the time, which was a prog band called Satyr, we were very popular in LA. We were the first band in history to have a Krypton laser show, where you're shooting lasers off mirrors and all that,
Hmm.
costume changes. It was a pretty elaborate thing, but we were a prog band, and uh, they were like signing bands like the Motels and that, and the Knack, that kind of thing was popular. But we still packed in when we played the clubs. So my guitar player was playing with Kevin Dubrow, and I forgot who. Rudy had left to join Ozzy
Hmm.
with Randy and so I was asked to join the band and started playing around the clubs and everything and recording. We did a lot of demos, which a lot of those became the Mental Health album, which a lot of people don't know. A lot of that stuff were the demos that we cut. And anyway, I was in the studio, and I remember being asleep on the couch, and Kevin, I think it was Kevin or Frankie, said, "Hey, it's time to do your bass track for Bang Your Head." I went, "Oh, really? Okay." So I woke up and I went in there. I said, "Turn it up." And I did it in one take, except for the last note, because it's one of those where you hold it out and then
Hmm.
kaboom. So yeah, and another memory from that was in the studio with the producer and Kevin, arguing, full on, just arguing about doing "Come On Feel the Noise."
Hmm. Is
Because
that Spencer Proffer?
yeah, we called him Spend Your Profits. But yeah, anyway, he he uh he and I were like arguing with Kevin, going, "Man," I'm saying to Kevin, I go, "Look, listen to all the songs. You hear like a commercial pop single on this record?" I go, "I don't." I go, "We need something." And this song that he just played us, it's a Slade tune. Uh,
Hmm.
I think would be great. We should give it a shot. And he argued against it because he didn't want any outside material. But he ended up doing it, obviously, and that changed the course of probably the whole music scene and fabric of it during that period of time.
Hmm.
Because everything turned into the metal, hard rock, hair guys.
Yeah. And it wasn't the only time Quiet Riot went to the Slade well either.
No, you know what? I actually was really shocked. Honestly, I was called in on the second album, Condition Critical, to
Hmm.
sing again. They wanted that same background sound.
Hmm.
I ended up actually doing a bass on a track too, but when they said, "Yeah, put up Mama," and I go, "Oh, doesn't Phil Collins have a song called Mama right now out?" That's what I thought. And then when I go, "You guys are going to do another Slade song?" Really? I was surprised. It was successful for them, but
Yeah.
to me, it was kind of an odd choice. I would have gone with something that really established them as what they're about, and there's instead of doing that again, it kind of like writes them off to me. That
Yeah.
was my impression back
Yeah.
then.
Slade would have liked to have had that success here with those songs.
I'm telling you what, no kidding. But you know what? They still still ka-ching with when
Yeah.
it gets played. Come
Yeah.
on, I hear "Come On, Feel the Noise" to this day. I'll be watching football, which I'm a big Packers fan, but anyway, I'm watching football, and you hear the song, the whole crowd is singing "Come On, Feel the Noise," and it's the same reaction when we get out there and toured. The people come, they want to relive those happy days, you know, with those songs.
Yeah, they're anthemic, and they were very much of a time when, I mean, hard rock just ruled the world at that time.
It certainly did. It took over, and I'd like to think that song happened to kick the doors open for all these other bands like Cinderella and Rad and you name it, everybody that they were kind of all playing the clubs too at the same time, but nobody had that huge success so that all the record companies go, I need a band like that. So everybody signed bands like it was crazy. And all the guys like the bands like the Knack and the Motels, they all just went bye-bye, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same effect we had when Nirvana hit the scene. And, you know, same kind of thing. When they hit the scene, it was see you guys later.
Yeah.
And it was almost a 10-year run though, right?
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. The labels just, they all glom onto the same thing. It's like, this is the hot sound, so we don't have time for anything else.
That's what we got to do. Yeah. You know, and luckily a lot of the classic rock bands hung out and hung together over all these years, and for it to come back so people want to hear it again. And it still does really well in a live environment. I know nobody really sells records anymore because nobody buys records anymore. And you can just get it for free online.
Just me.
Yeah, well, yeah, good for you. Congratulations. I know I see all of that. That's fantastic. But in general, you know, it's more of a promotional item now, a record, than it was for a financial thing.
Yeah. You landed on your feet after Quiet Riot there. You went into Giuffria. You guys had a big album out. Went to number 26 on the Billboard album chart in 1985 with Call to the Heart, which went to number 15 on the Hot 100. Great song. And how did you end up in Giuffria?
Well, I guess they weren't happy with the bass player that was on the record. So I came in when the record was done, basically, and redid all the bass parts in it. And then they asked me to join the band. And it was my first, talk about breaking into your first tours. My first tour was 85. We opened up for Deep Purple on their Perfect Strangers tour. They just got back together, so it was sold out arenas. And then we jumped off that and got into the Foreigners sold out arena tour because they had a #1 song with "I Want to Know What Love Is." So it was a really, really great time. I was at the right place at the right time, I guess, with that. And that song, if you look back at that chart, the Billboard chart from those days, that song was up against, like, if you had a K-Tel's biggest hits, it would be that list of songs like "Run to You" and "Like a Virgin" and just on and on. They're all huge songs. "Neutron Dance." I'm trying to remember them all, but I'm going, man, the fact that we're even in here is amazing, you know.
All those big MTV hits.
Yeah, and I honestly think that band would have done way better if it would have had a different name, because people just did not grasp, what is Giuffria? What is it? I remember the record company going, what is Giuffria? Bug on the wall? That's actually what Bruce said back then. But he went along with it. But they were offering up Wet Paint as a name, so we said, okay, we'll go with Giuffria.
Yeah, doesn't have the same ring as a Van Halen.
No, or U2 even, or something. I think it needs to be somewhat easy to grasp. And I think that was we were up against that. In fact, they were putting phonetically after the name how to say it. So
yeah, that's tough. But you know, it was a successful album, and you know, you left Giuffria in 1986. What was that like for you at that time, leaving after a successful album and tour like that?
Well, the reason I left that band was because Dave Isley, who's still my very, very close friend, and I just talked to him yesterday online. Both Dave and Greg would not let anybody else participate in songwriting. You know, and as you know, that's a big part of being a musician.
Yeah.
And I'm a composer. So that was, and Kevin called me and said, hey, do you want to join the band? You can write all the tunes with us, but you know, on and on. And obviously Quiet Riot was at a higher level at that point than Giuffria by a long shot.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Craig Goldie, the guitar player. He left too for the same reason, because Greg Giuffria and Dave Isley did not want to share with any other songwriting, just the two of them. So It wasn't a band in the sense like that, you know.
Right, right. And with Greg naming the band after himself, that almost doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I know. He should have, you know what? I've always thought, what would have been a good name, Greg coming out of Angel, right? They
Hmm.
should have called the band The Tower, because that was like a huge song for that band, and it's got a lot of imagery behind it. It could have been something, and everybody knows how to say the tower.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah. Was there any regret of Giuffria not doing like more like music videos and stuff?
that I wouldn't know how to answer that question, because I left after the first album.
Mm.
We did two videos, and then we did some videos for the movie Gotcha that came out. We did a lot of the songs on the soundtrack for that movie. That was a pretty big movie at the time.
Hmm.
And they shot some videos with us in it.
Yeah, I remember seeing the Call to the Heart video. I don't think I remember, and I watched. I mean, at that point, I think I was living in front of MTV, so I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
how I would have missed any
I,
other ones.
I don't think MTV jumped on anything else that the band did.
Yeah,
But yeah, the Call to the Heart video, I remember that well.
yeah.
I was just
Um, Go ahead. You sang backing vocals on a 1990 album called "Leader of the Band," Banned. How did you end up on a Sam Kinison record?
well. That's also kind of an interesting story. I think it was I'm trying to think. Was it Richie that was producing that? Oh, anyway, I got a call to come in and sing on a track, and then Eddie Money was the singer with me, which was very cool, because he was such a great guy, and
Yeah.
I'd run into him in airports after that while on the road, and we did a couple of shows with him, which is an odd pairing, Quiet Riot and Eddie Money. But really sweet guy, and yeah, we sang together on that song on the album.
Yeah,
They
Sam
were
had
just,
a ton
they
of
were
big
trying-
names on that album.
yeah, I think that was the point. They were just trying to like pack it with as many, people from the era back then on the album that they could. But it was a great experience being able to do that. Yeah.
Did you get to hang with Sam during the
No,
recording? Was he
he
there?
wasn't even there.
Yeah. Mm.
So I know I unfortunately didn't get to meet him,
Yeah.
hang with him. It was one of those things where they just brought you in, and
Yeah. You played with, I mean, virtually everybody. It's like a who's who. One of the things you did was you were on the 1988 Ted Nugent album, "If You Can't Lick 'Em," which is
yeah, great title. Great
such a
title.
Ted Nugent title.
That's my favorite. I think it's my favorite album title of all I've done. It's pretty funny.
What was it like working with Ted? Because his public persona is so out there.
Well, it's all I can say is what you see is what you get, and he is a little bit wacky on many levels. When we would take a break, we would go and shoot some. When we were making the album, we'd go and shoot some basket hoops, and he would have a full-scale deer set up in the bushes way far away, and he'd have his bow and arrow out shooting at it, And one of the things I remember in the studio when I was cutting my bass, he had a pearl-handled 45 automatic with him in the back of his belt that he carried. And if I overplayed, it fell on the floor. I go, I guess that means I should lighten up a little bit here. So yeah.
That sounds
And
a
he had a
little.
stack, he had a stack of he had a stack of Polaroids. I'm not kidding you. It was probably this high of different animal kills that he had. Like he had his little kid at the time holding a ram's head up, and it's like I'm going, wow, he's serious. He goes, yeah, I'll stick it. He'll stay in a tree for 2 days waiting for his prey to come along. But he says he eats everything that he takes out. So
Yeah. Okay. Um,
an experience, definitely. Tom Werman
Yeah.
was the producer. I remember him, a Motley Crue's record had come out, and he was just constantly looking at charts, going, "Oh yeah, we're doing." He was so excited about that record. I think
You've
it was a
worked with
girls album. Yeah.
you've worked with Alice Cooper / Greg Allman, a bunch of other well-known musicians. Do you prefer that kind of variety to being in one band, or is that just the way that your career's kind of gone?
You know what? Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, totally totally like this, and I'm finally getting to try something after all these years doing my own thing,
Mhm.
where it's 100%. I'm overseeing everything. I'm producing it. I'm writing most of it, and I'm picking and choosing the right players for the right song and seeing if they want to do it. And first of all, hey, what do you think? It'd be great for this, and generally it's been perfect, you know, spot on. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride, definitely.
I noticed I can't believe you can't believe everything you read on Wikipedia, but you had done some work with John Waite. What did you do with John?
Oh, basically, I was doing actually, it's an unusual album. It's a Mr. Big kind of a tribute album. It's called
Mhm.
Influences Connections.
Okay.
They're actually on it on certain tracks. So, which is kind of odd. You're doing a tribute record, but you're actually on it. And
Mhm.
John Waite came in, and I played bass on the track with him.
Okay.
That's basically how all I just got to spend a couple days with him recording and working on arrangements and stuff.
What was it like working with John?
He's great. You know,
Mm.
I've had another experience which wasn't so great, but just but that's another story. But as far as in the studio, it was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than just a scheduling conflict, have you ever said no to a request to play on an album? It seems like you're on everything that you've been asked to do.
Um, ac- what? Woo, Keith. Actually, the phone was ringing. Actually, yeah, I have passed on some things if I just didn't think I was the right bass player for it, maybe, or it's just not something I wanted to be associated with musically because
Mhm.
it was just not great, you know. But usually, most generally, I'll do something. I just did a session recently for Brent Woods, producer, guitar player, plays with Sebastian Bach. He's a great producer, engineer, and I went in to do a session for him. One thing I was doing sounded like the band Ghost, and then I did a country artist. And I brought two different. I go, what am I doing? Okay, so I need a Fender bass for the country artist, and I need my Spectre bass for this Ghost metal-y kind of thing.
Mhm.
So
Chuck, you've done a ton of different kinds of music. It makes me really curious as to what you listened to growing up. Like, what was the first thing that grabbed you?
the very first thing,
Yeah.
well, like most people in my age group, I would say the Beatles.
Hmm.
I remember being a kid, to this day, I got a tennis racket as my guitar, and I stood up on the fireplace looking at all the shag carpets, and those were the thousands of people that I was performing for, and that was my vision for my future, I guess, which has come to fruition.
Hmm.
Um, playing like these big festivals like in Europe and here, Rocklahoma, places like that.
Yeah. As a composer, do you have time to actually enjoy music, consume it as a listener?
Oh yeah, yeah. I listen to all kinds of music. That's one of the things about me is that I like so many different styles of music. Um, I was even in a flamenco band, for 2 years. I produced two reggae records. I'm totally all over the map as
Yeah.
far as if it's quality, quality performances, good songs done well. I usually am into it.
Yeah. Do you go for convenience and do the streaming thing these days? Do you still buy product?
It depends on if I really want the product or not, but basically just streaming stuff like most people do. And maybe it's being lazy. They opened up the new Amoeba in Hollywood, and I still haven't
Right.
been there. I've been meaning to get down there. I keep going, I got to go to Amoeba, but with the pandemic, you don't really get out as much. It's like I'm
Yeah.
still very careful. Things keep changing with it. So, and that's why I haven't started Ultimate Jam Night back. I don't even know if you know what Ultimate Jam Night is, but I started an event in 2015 because DJs were taking over the Hollywood music scene,
Hmm.
and musicians needed a place to gather and get together. And I started that, and it became a huge success. And we've been at the Whiskey for 5 years, every Tuesday, until the pandemic hit. And between 45 and 100 pro musicians, trying to, I'm the cat herder,
Yeah.
basically trying to get everybody organized. Everybody knows what song they're going to play, when they're going to be on, what key it's in, what ending they're going to do. And people have formed bands meeting there. People have gotten married. People have gotten tours.
Yeah.
Which I'm very proud of that been able to create a scene where there's a lot of growth for the music community.
Well, I hope you can bring that back soon. It's been a,
Oh yeah, I was hoping for January,
yeah.
but now we got another variant.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were about to open in August, but then the Delta variant hit, you know, and I don't want to be responsible for people getting ill, you know.
Right. Yeah, understandable. Chuck, where can people find you online and find your work?
Well, chuckwright.com is one place. I'm on Facebook. I have a Chuck Wright official page there, and I usually respond to anybody that writes me. And in general, I'm, you know, pretty approachable in that regard. But you know, and Cleopatra Records now has a thing. I have at SoundCloud that I just started to do because I have my own thing now.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
your project's called Chuck Wright's Sheltering Sky. Is there some significance to Sheltering Sky part of that?
Well, in a way, yes. I've always felt, mainly because of what I try to do here with the musicians, is kind of like an umbrella and a sheltering sky for everybody, and everybody gathering, and in this album having over 30 guest players, it kind of feels the same way. So, and I also like the alliteration of Wright and sky, kind of had a flow to it. So,
Hmm.
and it just conjures up nice imagery, that kind of thing.
Hmm. Well, Chuck, I really appreciate your time today. It's been fun learning about your project and about some of your musical history, and I wish you the best of luck with the new Sheltering Sky project. And thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael. Cheers.
Thank you.